Welcome to the Racer Insider Show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Travis Turner. That is the Racer Insider, Lindy Suter. We are back for episode 9, and we find ourselves in unfamiliar territory here this year. The Racers suffering their first Missouri Valley Conference loss last night on the road at Drake. 101-90 was the final there. Racers still in first place in the league, but the league race tightens a little bit, and natural to expect that to happen, and certainly not unusual to find defeat on the road in conference play. Just look around America and you will see an example of that nearly every night. But the Racers' challenge now will be to make sure that isn't a streak. They will face Northern Iowa, trying to make sure they continue to have their hold on first place in the race for the championship in the regular season in the Missouri Valley Conference. Before Lindy and I get into what's going on with the Racers of late, let's tell you about our fantastic sponsor here on the show, and it is a familiar name and brand. It is Suter Insurance Group. You can contact Lindy and his great staff via phone at 270-753-5842 and visit them on the web at SuterINSgroup.com. Again, that is SuterINSgroup.com, and that phone number 270-753-5842. But of course, it's always great to have Mr. Suter here to talk about his great team. And Lindy, I'll give you a few minutes to do that.
Well, what I'd like to say, of course, we're an independent agency. And what an independent agency means is that we represent more than one company. So we may represent 10, 12, 15 different companies. And so that means everybody's situation is different. So we're able to place you. If one company gets out of hand on their rates, we're able to shop it with other companies. And that's very important. Another thing to keep in mind, if you are shopping for insurance, just call us and let us do the work. We represent these different companies: Erie, Progressive, Grange, Allstate, the whole bit. And so we're able to actually shop that insurance for you and take all the hassles of getting on the phone and calling all around town.
Isn't this guy great at his job? It's like he's a veteran insurance professional or something.
Yeah, been in it for a while, Travis. Been in it
not quite as long as you have been a Racer fan, but for quite some time. And by the way, an update on our reveal of the Suter 60. Lindy has in my hands the 70s roster, and we're working up that presentation for you because we want to make sure that we give all these guys and their great careers the attention they deserve. So we're hoping that within the next week or so, we'll be able to bring you the 70s team. We're also going to start work on the 80s team as we work through the Suter 60 decade by decade. And we already know, Lindy already told me, we'll have a little crossover, the 60s and the 70s. We talked about where to put Hector Blondette and Jimmy Young as they kind of crossed over. And we'll have that happen a few more times, I'm sure, on the list. So we'll probably give those guys a mention on the 70s team. Lindy, I know you did want to mention you'd opened a spot for Don Duncan, and we talked about him in our 60s conversation, but Don's officially on the 60s squad.
Correct. I decided to move Jimmy Young up to the 70s, and I called Don Duncan up to take his place.
That's right. You got to have some flexibility here.
On there anyway. I mean, from guys that I watched, and of course that was right at the time where I really started. I can remember watching them. Was right at that time. So
we'll get that to you.
There's another one I moved from the 80s to the 70s.
Right. So. And hey, it's your roster. You have the ability to do that. But Gary Hooker, my goodness, Gary, one of the guys that was first impactful for me, and what a difference he made in this program. We'll talk about that when we get to him. One other note as far as our schedule and programming, if all holds up, and you guys understand schedules well enough to know that sometimes they don't, but if everything goes as expected, we will have our visit with former Racer head coach Mark Gottfried next week, and we'll look forward to that conversation. Should have that for you. Should be posted sometime on Wednesday, I would think. We'll talk to Mark at some point that afternoon here in our time zone. We've kind of had to work a little bit with his schedule because he's in the Pacific time zone and on the road quite a bit as well. But we do look forward to hearing him talk about his great experiences here with Murray State. Well, my friend, as I mentioned last night, something that had not happened, period, in quite some time to this group, certainly the first time in Missouri Valley play, falling to Drake on the road, 101-90.
Yep, I'd say, first of all, hats off to Drake. I thought Drake played an excellent game. They had a good game plan. They came right at us, challenged us physically. I think the Quinn kid, I mean, he had it in his eyes. I saw it in the first 2 minutes of the game that he was ready to play. And I think he took it a challenge that he was, Javon Jackson getting a lot of publicity for us. And and plus we had beat them earlier in the year. We went up there and beat them last year. A very motivated team, a team that needed a win desperately. Didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me that we lost the game. Now, if you'd have told me we scored 91 points or whatever, I would have thought for sure that we had won the game.
Right.
And especially if you go back and look at some of the stats in the game where our 4 guards go 2 for 16 from 3-point range. I mean, Quinn pretty much, he outscored all 4 of them, and they shot about the same amount of shots. I think he shot 25 and maybe the 4 of our guys shot 24 or 26, but around the same. And so you just, you go on the road and you have a night like that, and we were 6 for 26 total from 3, and you're just going to have a hard time winning unless you can lock down the other team. And of course, we did not do that.
Yeah, Quinn and Larson, the 2 guys in the backcourt, were just phenomenal, and they took about 60% of their field goals total. Quinn with 25 attempts, he was 14 of 25 from the field. Larson, I believe, was 7 of 13 in the game, and they just really did a tremendous amount of damage with the dribble. Now, they do a lot of different things with Quinn, and it was interesting, Lindy. I was shared with you earlier. I went back this morning and I watched all 25 of his field goal attempts from last night. And the physicality with which he played was the thing I think that stood out more than anything else. But they utilize him in a variety of ways. The Racers chose to nearly face guard him. They nearly denied him the basketball. It wasn't a full front and denial, but it was close. They were not giving help off him, but they were working really hard not to allow him the catch, which is something that Drake anticipated. Their first offensive possession was a set play in which they curled him off the high post, and he just darted backdoor. Nice bounce pass there and a layup. But he's so good in transition, but he's just so good on the attack. He's a big guard. He's a physical guard, really is a power 4 type guard in terms of his physical frame. And Javon's a big, strong guy for this league, and there was a lot of contact. It was interesting to watch. I know the Racers felt like a lot that Quinn was using the offhand to his advantage. Of course, he's a left-hander, using the right arm to clear, was initiating a lot of contact, but the Racers were giving as good as they got. But he's one of those tough 2 makers. We talk about all the time. You want to force guys into shots that are worth 2 points, but that you might make 35 or 40% of them. Well, a lot of the 14 baskets were very difficult shots, but he's one of those guys. You saw him getting a lather, and you said it was in his eyes and just in attack mode all night long. And that's one of those things when you're facing someone as potent as the Racers. Drake respected their ability to put a number on the board, but anytime we might start a run back, he was going to get a basket, and was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think he took out 25 shots, Travis.
That's right.
25 shots. That's a bunch of shots. And he made a bunch, and like you said, he could have scored more, on a few of them. But, he had it in his eye. Like I said earlier, I could tell right off the bat we were in for a battle, because I think he took it on personally. And that's the first time I really watched that kid play up close. And he's tough. He's tough. He reminds me of some of our, the Vincent Rainey type guys.
Right.
Really tough dude. And, it's like Coach Miller said on the post game, they just out physical, and of course it didn't help any that when you're 6 for 26 from 3, and you've got Fred King that's 4 of 6 from 2, but he only gets to play 11 minutes.
That's right.
11 minutes. I mean, that's the rest of, we've got to have Fred King for more than 11 minutes. I mean, if you had told me that we're going to go up there and beat Drake and Fred King's going to play 11 minutes, I don't know. I'd be
right.
And I thought the game in the first half was, I don't know, the referees to me in the first half were not very good. I'm not used to that many fouls being called in the Missouri Valley Conference. And I'm still upset about the walking call on Ramon. I think they're getting that wrong. They caught him for walking a couple of times this year, and they went back and showed it in slow motion and the whole bit. It was not a walk. So I don't know. That was kind of frustrating for me. Of course, me, I'm always going to get on the referee here and there.
Well, but, Lindy, I have
in the second half, I ain't throwing no blame on anything there. We just got beat.
I will say this relative to officiating, and this is not a pro racers or anti racers. I'm not suggesting that the whistle was in one way or another, but one of the things that bothers me tremendously about the way the game is whistled in the league, and I know most fans share your frustration when the whistle is heavy. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think there's enough whistles. The game is not being played the right way. This is not what basketball was meant to be. There was nothing in the origins of this game, and certainly things have evolved over time. But this is not a put your hands on you kind of game. And understand, we are officiating. They have decided to apply rules to this game, a style of officiating that you can be into a guy in the post as long as you don't put two hands on him and use your knee. But what are we talking about there? You know, you're okay in the post. We can do that to you, but out on the floor, we're gonna let you steer dribblers. And I want to ask the officials, how does Fred King get any fouls called on him, given the level of contact between Quinn and Jackson on the perimeter? I mean, these are like correctional officers. It's prison rules. Call it early on the perimeter and clean it up. But there's got to be some level of consistency. And here's what coaches and players are going to do. Coach is going to say to player, we are going to be just as physical as we can be up to and slightly beyond the letter of the law. We'll force them to call it all.
Yeah.
And guess what, officials, and I'm sure it comes down from league offices and the signing secretary, somebody says, well, guess what, guys? We're not going to call it all. You know, we're hearing all the time now in the NBA, they want a rougher game. Now people are like, well, we're scoring too many points. There's no defense. Well, guys, here's the thing. Defense, fouling the hell out of people is not defense. It's fouling the hell out of people. Why don't you just bring a pipe out to the floor and we'll keep guys from scoring. And so, yeah, that a big post guy is going to be penalized for being a big post guy, and guards can get away with the crap they do out there. It's poorly done. The game needs an adjustment.
After you've made that argument, I'll have to totally agree with you, Travis. Makes all the sense in the world.
And here's what players will do. Players will make the adjustment because guess what they want to do? They want to play. They want to play. But I think that's such an important point going back to Fred and his availability. You know, when you look at this team and the ensemble cast that it's been, obviously Javon has been the most productive scorer, and he brings a lot to the table. I think personally the most talented player on the roster is Roman. I don't think there's anybody that can do more than he can do. You know, Lane is so indispensable in terms of his ability to run the club as well as scoring the ball a little bit when he's shooting it well. But as far as the guy who is the biggest game changer in being a piece that maybe no one else has, is Fred's ability to go 14 and 13 as he did against Indiana State, the presence that he can be defensively. And now Fred's a guy in the screen game, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You can attack him, and you can attack all the big guys because they're going to go drop coverage. But around the basket, he is so formidable on both ends of the floor. And I think your point is spot on, and it would be in any road game. Recipe for success equals Fred King on the floor for 25 minutes, not 11.
Not 11. In fact, we had several guys with 2 fouls. Thank goodness we do have some depth.
Right.
We had several guys with 2 fouls early in that game. But, yeah, it's just one of those nights, Travis. I kind of had that feeling, like I said, and I saw that look in Quinn's eyes. And, you know, our shots were kind of going in and out. And I think we hit a good percentage against Indiana State the game before, didn't we?
Sure. Well, we made 11.
Yeah. And so, you know, sometimes the percentages, like you say, catch up with you. Like you say, a 40% shooter sometimes hits 6 out of 10, and then sometimes it's 2 out of 10.
Right.
And,
it goes in streaks.
Yeah. And, I just was all recipe for a loss. And, you know, I don't ever want to lose a game, but I'm kind of like my brother, and I don't want to put a hex on the Lady Racers at all. But he never liked those streaks. Right. He wanted breaking those streaks because especially going in, you know, to the last half of the season, he'd like to have a little break from the streaks because then you can start another streak.
Well, brother Larry liked the streak in the OVC and Missouri Valley tournaments. That's the streak he wanted, right?
He always liked, yeah, he dang right. But yeah, what a big race though, Travis. I mean, you know, you got our Valpo teams proving their SIU's kind of dropping down, looks like. But then you've got the Indiana States, Illinois, Chicago. Man, they're all just dangerous. I mean, we were fortunate to win the Indiana State game at home. And then
Lindy
beat them last night.
And
and they really whipped that ball around. I was impressed with them.
I
But
think for
like you
me,
said, time and time again, these are college basketball players in the Missouri Valley. Everybody's got pretty good players, and
oh,
just
they're
about
good enough.
every team is very well coached.
They're good enough to beat you one night, especially in their building.
Exactly, exactly. Now I do think we've got an important stretch coming up with Northern Iowa Saturday and Illinois State at home, and then at Belmont. Going into this 4-game stretch, you really hope that you can come out of it with a split.
Yeah, if you want to be the outright top seed, yeah,
Yeah,
I think you do.
need to win 2 here, and I think that would be, pretty good. Illinois State, though, I was looking at margin of victory through 9. What was it? We played 9 conference games so far. The
That's right.
margin of victory, actually, Illinois State leads in margin of victory. They're number 1. We're number 2. Belmont's number 3. So
We want to go back to the fouls for a second, Lindy, because one of the things that we always focus on from a numbers standpoint, because of the number of fouls, and obviously that was amplified by the end of the game, sending Drake to the line several times. But again, you foul, you get in the bonus, trips to the foul line, trips to the foul line. On the night, Drake ends up making 32 free throws,
yeah,
41 attempts total, but they make 32 free throws. They only took a dozen threes. They made 5 of those, but the volume of free throws ensured that Drake won the 3 and free battle 47-42.
yeah, I looked at that right away.
And so, that's something in terms of hanging hat on. This club's done it all year at home against Indiana State, 49-33. Racers win that by 16 en route to winning the game by 4. So, those are things. And we talked about the fact that the 3 did not go down. But what Murray State has done such a good job of all season long is not fouling their opponent, not sending him to the foul line. That's gotten a little bit out of order in conference play. And by the way, Lindy, just to make the point about threes, sometimes they're going to go down, sometimes they're not. But the Racers in Missouri Valley play now through 9 games are 83 of 242 from 3, and that has dropped their percentage in conference play down to 34.3%, which is not bad, but it's not where they were in the non-conference. They're suffering about 3 points there in that area. Their opponents are actually shooting a little bit better, 352, but we know what a good job the Racers do taking away the 3. Opponents have only taken 128. So the Racers have outscored their opponents 83 threes to 45 threes. There you're talking about a difference of 38 triples, Lindy, or 114 points over 9 games. So outscoring their opponents by a wide margin per game at 3. At the free throw line, the Racers have an advantage of 170 makes to 146 makes. So the advantage per game is only about 2.5 there. But conference play, we know it gets very difficult. Interesting thing about scouts, Lindy, and the way that your opponents play you when it gets into league play. So right now the Racers, Roman leads them in 3-point shooting by percentage in conference play. He's 12 of 28 for 42.9%. Javon is 17 of 40 for 42.5%. Matisse Corbon, 5 of 12, 41.7. JJ Trainer, 8 of 22, 36.4. And interestingly enough, the 3 guys we would define as the best shooters, who are also the 3 guys who the greatest percentage of their field goals total come from 3-point range in terms of percentage in league play. Mason Miller, 13 of 38, 34.2. Braden Shorter, 10 of 32, 31.3. And Lane Taylor, 14 of 47, 29.8. Folks know, and they're making their life pretty hard.
Yeah, they're going to have to start making some shots. That percentages, that's not good, especially from what you said, coming from the guys that are the shooters.
Right.
They've got to hit. And, as a team, I prefer us to be a 37% 3-point shooting team over a 34% 3-point shooting team.
Sure.
I mean, I know that, but in the past, if you go back and look at our really great teams that we had, really good teams, most of them shot 37 plus from 3-point range. It's hard to, especially if you're not known for just locking down the opponent on defense.
Right.
We're going to have to start shooting better, or this thing's going to be, it's going to be a race to the end.
Yeah, and Lindy, a lot of that is shot selection, and I didn't do a deep dive on everybody, but I thought I knew what my eyes were telling me. So I went in to take a look at Lane's jump shot profile, and Synergy breaks that down in terms of unguarded, guarded, and off the dribble. Okay, so you get a real clear look at what's happening in terms of the total jump shot profile. They break it down that way. When he's guarded from three, what Synergy defines as guarded, he is 6 of 26, which is 23%.
Mm-hmm.
Off the dribble, where he has taken almost half of his threes, he is 16 of 51 for 31.4%. When he is catch and shoot unguarded, he is 14 of 32 for 44%.
There you go.
So, and we can go down, and I'm sure those similar breakdowns. Now, neither Braden nor Mason are going to take very many dribble jumpers. In fact, I don't know that they'll have any, but we would be able to look at the breakdown of guarded and unguarded. So I think you have a situation there where the player has to have a level of awareness. Certainly, the coaching staff has access to the same tools I do. Somebody has to say, hey, brother, we want you to dial from deep when you're open. But here's what's happening. And, you know, the guarded three, probably a bad idea for all of us. Okay.
Yeah.
But unguarded, step into it, obviously. And as skilled as Lane is, but he may want to take a look at some film on the dribble jumpers and say, okay, how am I in terms of alignment? Am I drifting right? Am I drifting left? Am I falling away? Is there something from a balance point that I'm not getting right side squared up on the rim? And again, just recognition of what's effective. I made the point with you about the game last night, and the Racers still scored 90 points. You don't cry about, you know, the fact that they scored 90 points. But when you're struggling from deep, as they were, and you know me, I love it, and I want to use that weapon. It's part of who they are, but some nights you have to adjust. They were 24 of 36 from two. So you're making 2 out of every 3 from two, and that's even with Fred not playing a ton, which, by the way, how about Brock Weiss and his minutes?
Yes.
Incredibly productive.
Mm-hmm.
I told you the women had the same situation over at SIU. They were just 5 of 26 from three. It's a big part of what we do, although we haven't really shot it all that well this year. But over in Carbondale, the ladies were 28 of 38 from two. They were averaging nearly 1.5 points a shot. Listen, by the third quarter, let's do some analysis and say this is working, this is not. And, you know, go with where your advantage is. And I'm sure not having Fred for, you know, the full complement of his minutes hurt that way. But, you know, you've got enough data both overall and within league play. You know, a lot of people I know, especially people that are, you know, my age and your age, don't love to hear the word analytics, and they don't want to think about nerds running the sports world and statistics. All I'm telling you is these are things, these are facts. These are things that are happening. Sometimes you've got to evaluate, and do we need to make an adjustment? Halfway through league play, be a good time.
Yeah, I wonder how many open threes we missed last night. To me, it seemed like every one that
there were several, and Lindy, I did not chart it, but just out of curiosity, I did go back and watch every 3-point attempt.
Yeah.
And I would say that there were at least 6 to 8 wide open room service shooting drill shots we didn't make.
That's what I thought. I mean, it was like, okay, even Lane, I think, had one over in the corner that was kind of a big play in the game.
And you may remember a play where Roman fanned a nice little touch pass. Matisse was one to his right on the wing, and he made and I mean, Matisse, I mean, you and I were closer to him than a defender, and he just didn't make the shot. And of course, that's basketball, and that's 23 footers. And to tell you how thin the margins are when you're on the road in a game like that, if 2 more of those go down and 6 more are on the board, some of the margin came with the free throws late, but 2 more threes made, and all of a sudden you're probably in a 1 or 2 possession game to the end.
Yeah, it's like, well, Lane's open from the 3 that went in out, and that play that you just talked about, Matisse. In fact, after I saw that play, and I thought, Roman, you should have shot it yourself, because he was open too when he dished it off. And you know, what was he last night? 3 for 3.
I think he was 3 for 4 or 5. Yeah, he shot it really well. Obviously, he had 19 points and 10 rebounds, which was a great bounce back from him. He kind of had a tough one against Indiana State, but he was really good. I mentioned Brock Weiss in 8 minutes, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 on the offensive end. Javon had a tough shooting night, but ended up with 20. JJ had a dozen. But as we've said, when you're on the road, weird stuff happens anyway. And, coaches told me years ago when I was a kid, boys, we go on the road between them and the officials and the home crowd. We better be 10 or 12 better, or it's going to get real tight. And that's the way that it is. One other thing I wanted to point out about the club and in terms of mining your data, Lindy, and making adjustments. So we talk about the drop coverage a lot. I'm going to explain that for a minute for people who are like, what in the hell is he talking about? So with the bigs, and typically it's going to be with Fred, but Brock, Dylan, if they're in the game, JJ sometimes will be in drop coverage. They do some different things with him. But when the middle ball screen in particular is when this is most obvious, and you can use drop on either wing as well, but they'll come set that screen at the top. Fred's man will. Guard's going to turn the corner off that big screen, and rather than blitz that or just kind of hard hedge it and then get back, Fred's just going to retreat. He's going to go to the middle of the lane, and what that coverage is meant to do is you're trying to force the guard into a limbo beneath the three-point line and outside the restricted area. It's not a straight line drive to the cup, because that's why Fred's dropping to take that away. Also, it's not we're going to pull up and we went under, now we're going to take an open three. It's a tough two sort of thing. But because they get so deep sometimes, that 10, 12 footer for a guy like Quinn's pretty easy money. They've made that at a pretty high rate. And the screen roll defense, Synergy rates everything you do, offense and defense, excellent, very good, below average, poor, that sort of thing. And defensively, the Racers' profile is generally speaking somewhere in the very good, range. Don't do a lot excellent in terms of points per possession, but they've got several good areas. They've got several average areas. They've got one poor we'll talk about in just a second. But against both the pick and roll ball handler and the roll man, they are in the 37th and the 40th percentile in terms of point per possession. So that's an area where both between what coaches see on film and what they see per data, you can expect, especially that middle ball screen, there's going to be a heavy dose of that, where the Racers really have got to close a gap that has been a problem. On possessions that end with a cut, and we do have several teams in the Missouri Valley men's side that do like cutting in their offense, but on possessions that end with a cut, opponents are shooting 68% and scoring nearly 1.4 points per possession. So part of that's probably in terms of where they are scheme. Again, we don't leave a lot of three-point shooters, so there's not always a ton of interior help. But in terms of seeing both ball and man, at least a minor adjustment has got to be made there, because giving up 68% on anything, and of course these cuts are almost always going to be basket cuts, so it's going to be layup or dunk. That's an area where they got to get a little better.
Yeah, with bringing that up, and you think back, that is an area where Indiana State, I don't know what they shot with their cuts. They did a lot of cutting, it seemed to me.
They sure do.
I was very impressed with how quick they moved the ball around. And they were a tough out, and but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's always neat to be able to go back and marry what you think you see, what the box score at the end of games tells you, and then to just really go take a hard look at it. And of course, the Synergy cameras and the way the algorithms work, they do make errors. It's not exactly a 1-to-1 ratio, but they're typically close with the things that we see. And so, I think everybody understands out of hand that this club is really good offensively. And by the way, the data absolutely loves them. This is one of the most efficient offensive clubs in America that you're watching in these Murray State Racers. So if your eyeballs tell you this team is good offensively, there's a reason for that. They are. If your eyeballs tell you they're not great defensively, there's a reason for that. They're not. And one thing I would ask people to stop and realize, Lindy, it's just like you and I. We're pretty good, but we're not perfect. We come with lots of good things, but we might have a weakness or two, right? We can't be great at everything. And that's the thing about your roster. You have to realize that, and when you look at the makeup of our team, when you look at KJ Tenner, KJ is an incredible on-ball defender. That cat is going to just flat out get after you. But you wouldn't have to watch KJ long to know he is a much better defensive player than he is offensive player. That's no disrespect. That's no discredit. That's just his strength is on the defensive end of the floor. Now, by the flip side, we've got several guys that you would look at them and who they are physically and what they do, and you'd go, that guy's better at offense.
Right. Exactly.
And when you don't have a lot of guys who are just really tremendous individual defenders, it takes a great plan and a great cohesion within that plan, everybody understanding where they've got to be. And one thing I'll tell everybody to do, and you can do this with my wife on the women's side as well, but I saw this 4 or 5 times from Coach Miller when I was reviewing the film today. Watch Coach Miller occasionally when something happens, especially if the other team gets a wide open shot. If you see him react like this, that means somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do. And Quinn got a wide open jumper. I think he was actually on the line. I think they gave him a 2, but there was a miscommunication, and everybody went with the roll man, and he knocks down the jumper, and Coach Miller's just beside himself, because they didn't communicate and get to the great offensive player there. But I mean, these are things that happen. Again, my wife, if she was here with us, she would talk about how hard the staffs work, and the kids do. I mean, so many times they're acing the scouting report and they're doing so many things well. But when you are playing against good people, you are going to make those mistakes sometimes. But you have to understand possession to possession basketball. You make the last mistake, that may be the last one that night.
That's true. Hey, by the way, since you brought up the Lady Racers and Rochelle, let's talk about them a little bit. They deserve to be.
All right, but listen, you're a baseball guy, so it's no hitter time. Don't talk about the record.
I'm not going to talk about the record. I'm going to talk about what I saw the other day. I guess it was the Beaumont game, which, man, I thought the attendance was really good for that game. I thought the enthusiasm of the crowd was really good, too. And, boy, we put on a pretty good performance. But that's really the first time I really zeroed in on the Jelks girl. Is that how you pronounce her last name?
Yeah. Sharnice Curry Jelks. Yeah.
Very, very talented. Very talented. And I saw where she got nominated for mid-major player of the year this week. Is that right?
She's just been phenomenal.
She's good. She's really good. And then that was a very entertaining, very good ball game. And, I think they deserve to be. We won't talk about the record, but
it's good though.
It's good. It's really good. It's really, really, really good. So,
well, you brought up the fans, my friend, and I want to say thank you to all of those. And one of the things that has kind of happened that's special. And when I say this, I don't mean to direct any shade at anybody who's at just one and not the other. Whether it's men's or women's, we appreciate everybody supporting all of our teams, and what a great crowd for the men against Indiana State. Yeah. But what has kind of happened with the women's team that's kind of neat. I know there are a lot of people that miss the doubleheaders. Makes a ton of sense that you would, because now that the women are playing at such a high level, boy, wouldn't we like to have about $8,000 in for them as well. But because the women have had their own games and had their own setting, kind of their own fan base has developed. And we have some folks that are incredibly loyal to our women and just tremendous and faithful in their support. So Rochelle and I are incredibly grateful. I know the kids, it means so much to them that's happened. And you get to see now, both with the men and the women, how much great basketball and the Murray State Racers mean to our community and to our region. And it's a great thing. And one of the things that Lindy and I talk about a lot, even for him and his schedule, again, when there's a lot going on and you've got family, you got grandkids, whatever may be happening for you, you can't get to all of them all the time. But I know you are a faithful watcher on ESPN Plus. So if you're not there, you're watching, you're following, you're keeping up. And yeah, just thanks to everybody for the great level of support. It's really been an incredible thing.
Yeah, I think you're right on it. I mean, that's the one thing I really noticed when I went to the game Sunday is that it's like the Lady Racers have created their own fan base.
Yep.
I mean, there is a lot of people that cross over and go to both, but when you look around and you see all the kids there, really great. All the kids that were there, everybody having fun, and it was a very passionate crowd. I mean, they showed a lot of passion for the Lady Racers, and they got into the game, and I think that crowd's going to keep growing and growing.
Well, we hope the success will keep going and going. And as we've talked before, that makes it easier for folks to come to the arena when they're going to see a good product. UNI will be the foe, and of course they will be difficult, Lindy. Now they're struggling. In fact, they have lost 5 in a row, but they'll be tough in their building. Most of the losses for them here of late have been pretty tight. Trey Campbell is their leading scorer. He averages 13.1 points a game. Not shooting it real well, but he gets a lot of them up. He's also their top shot creator, 72 assists. Leon Bond III, 11.6 points a game. He's shooting nearly 40% from deep and grabs 6 rebounds a night. And it's kind of a club by committee. Of course, they don't play at a great pace. They don't score a ton. Tristan Smith and Ben Schweiger both average right at about 10 points a game. Will Hornseth at 9 points a game. Max Weisbrod, a 3-point weapon off the bench, 5 points a contest, and most of his shots are going to come from the 3-point range. But Lindy, this is not a team that scores a lot of points. They average just 67.1 points a game on the season. They have been over 70 or better just one time in Missouri Valley play. And the 5-game losing streak, 78-65 to Belmont, 75-69 to Bradley, 69-61 to UIC, 54-44 to Valpo, and most recently 59-54 to Illinois State.
Man, those some low-scoring games. Woo!
Hard to watch, I would think.
Oh, woo. Anyway, they'll be hungry.
They will be very hungry.
At the top of the league, and they're going to be very hungry. And boy, we better bring our A game. We don't need to bring no B game. We need to bring our A game on Saturday, as far as I'm concerned, to come out of there with a win. That's going to be tough. They've lost 5 in a row. I don't think they shot very good from 3 in their last game either.
They couldn't have it at 54 points.
I don't think they did very well. So you got 2 teams coming off of really cold shooting nights. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough one. We got to
Lindy, nobody will ask me, but if I could offer something in the suggestion box, I would tell the Racers to push tempo, even with defensive pressure if necessary early. You do not want this to be a game like the Illinois State game for Northern Iowa. You don't want anything in the 50s. You really don't even want anything in the 60s. Go put a number up. I dare you, Northern Iowa, to score 101 like Drake did. I don't think they can.
No, I don't think they can either. And that's going to be very, very, very important. Like you said, we got to get that game up and down. We got to get the tempo going. Because I don't. The 50s would really scare me. Really scare me.
Yeah, it'd be better if the Racers had about 50 at halftime, right?
Halftime. That's kind of what we're used to, 50 at halftime. But, yeah.
Well, I want to ask you something. I've been thinking about this.
Does it seem to you, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, does it seem like the pace of play, though, in the Missouri Valley is picking up? A lot of teams are playing
Yes,
fast.
Overall, yes.
I mean, you know the big, guys inside. It looks like to me it's getting a little bit more athletic and getting up and down the floor.
Well, Lindy, and I think that's a natural evolution with where we are in college athletics with the portal and with NIL and revenue sharing. You have seen over the last few years, this league just picked clean. The best players, we had a couple of years ago where like every guy that was first, second, third team, and I think we had one come back.
Right.
And we've had some of these kids go on to play at the Power 4 level and play very well. And of course, that's where you're going to see either the freakishly good athletes, the most highly skilled players, and obviously the size. It's what's going to be pulled out of the league. And so, things just as natural and simple. Let's think about the change. Indiana State has great success, and their head coach goes to St. Louis, and he takes his best players with him.
Right.
DeVries has great success at Drake, and he goes to West Virginia and takes his best players with him. And McCollum last year, great success, and he takes his players with him. And so, especially when size goes out, if people were to ask us about the way that Rochelle has built her program and why we went to the system we went to, the change that we went to, which we're still trying to make that transformation to play even faster and be able to press more, and the roster, has to fit that sometimes. But it's easier because there are so many great guard and wing size players in America. There are so many of them. And it is much easier to build attacks where you have 5 or 6 guards and wings in your rotation and a couple of bigs. You just can't, or most people can't throw the multiple big bodies. Murray State is really right now. It's a rarity to have all of the size that they have. And by the way, I've been scratching my head on some stuff this morning, and I've been wondering about a potential lineup where Brock Weiss and Fred King play together. You make these other fellas pay for not having size. We'll see if that might happen a little bit more. But I do think that we see basketball going up and down more. And Lindy, I think the game always filters down, from the higher levels of basketball. I think the reality of how good coaching staffs are just tremendous, and all the tools to prepare and to scout and to lay out a plan. And so very naturally, and I could show you the data from teams all over America, when you look at folks' points per possession, almost always, unless it's the most efficient half-court teams in the country, almost always there will be at least a 0.2 of a point drop between what they do in transition, which is usually somewhere in the 1.1 to 1.2 range, and what they do in the half court, which is usually around 1 or so. Because would you rather play against a great set defense, or would you rather play in transition and the game is going faster, and it fits the kind of athletes and the kind of players that people in this league can have? But look at your big boys. I mean, look at your big boys. I think of Florida. Florida has such a great and diverse front court. But when this team began to look like the best team in the SEC this year is when Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan, the guard transfers from Princeton and Arkansas, when they hit their stride, replacing those great guards like Clayton and Richard, those guys that Golden had in his backcourt last year. It's when his guard play locked in that they took off.
Mm-hmm.
Why has Kentucky had their struggles? Because of a lack of great guard play. It's the man with the ball is king. It used to be the man in the middle, but given the 3-point line, its value and the style of play, you have to have great guards, and I think you have to play with pace. And I when we talked about Northern Iowa, and I have so much respect for Ben Jacobson. You're talking about a guy who was one of mid-majors' great David representatives against Goliath. And the career that he's had there. But that they play the way that they play has been the way that they play, and it's 20 years too old.
Yeah,
you cannot in 9 Missouri Valley Conference games reach 70 one time and win.
No.
I mean, in their last 2 games, they've scored 44 and 54 points, and that's not because Valpo and Illinois State are the steel curtain of basketball defense. That's because your offensive players are not good enough, and you're not playing at enough pace. You don't have enough possessions. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And the people who have not embraced the idea of you must score the basketball from behind the arc and you must get to the free throw line, if you don't understand winning those 2 areas, they just started the clock on your career.
Yeah, I agree with you totally there.
I mean, that's.
Oh, Ray, did you see the X where they did the poll with the coaches about the top jobs in the conference?
No, I did not see that.
You did not see that? Well,
I don't do social media.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, I wish you were, but I know you're not.
Tell me about it.
Maybe not. But anyway,
no, you don't want me loose on social media. What did the poll tell us?
The poll, and the number 1 job in the league, cumulative points, was Drake. The number 2 job in the league was Murray State.
Yeah.
Number 3 job in the league might have been Belmont. And but out of the coaches, Murray actually had 6 first place votes. Drake had 4. So very, very interesting poll though, because they actually did it with the head coaches. And I guess it's the field of 68, and that group is the ones that are doing the polls, and they're doing each conference. They're doing ranking jobs.
Well, when you talk about that particular poll and you look around the league, obviously Belmont's position in Nashville is huge.
Yes.
But the counterpoint to that, of course, is crowd size. And then now, the thing that all the coaches are going to look at first is what's the revenue share in NIL bucket look like?
Exactly.
I mean, that's, and obviously the tradition-rich nature of Drake's program, and of course Des Moines, you're talking about a great city there. But I think in terms of and you and I have talked about how much tradition does and does not matter, but the way in which tradition matters at Murray State is crowd support and program support. So the Racers would be at or near the top there. The level of athletic department commitment to the program, they are probably right now at the top there. And of course, we love our little village here. We love Murray, Kentucky. I understand it wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea. But I would say when evaluating the Murray State job right now in the modern world, there wouldn't be very many reasons not to put it at the top.
Yeah, it has Drake 1, Murray State 2, Belmont 3, Northern Iowa 4, Bradley 5, Illinois State 6, SIU 7, Indiana State 8, UIC 9th, Evansville 10th, and Valpo 11th.
The only thing that's wrong there is Illinois State is too low. From what I understand, the level of investment in their programs is pretty good.
But the main reason Murray, one of the head coaches, why he voted Murray was the best job, was from all things you just said. When we had the best crowds, with great crowd support, and then what was the third one that you mentioned there?
Well, location is going to matter to some people.
Yeah, just but those three factors, I think, is why they said it was the best job in the league. Facility-wise, and improvements that are going to be made there. It was interesting.
As far as I know, if they need to have a tiebreaker, there's only one Racer Insider. So where's the Bruin Insider? Where's the Bulldog Insider? Step up.
There you go, Travis. There you go. Yeah, like you said, we had that big crowd, that 8,000 people at the Indiana State game. That was impressive. I think some of the things they're doing, hats off to the program for the $10 bleacher seats in the end zone. I like that idea. I think that's great. I'd rather have butts in the seats, especially when you're bringing kids. I like those day games too. That allows people from Paducah and Hickman and Carlisle County to make the trip over here to watch the game. Whereas, the night games are a little bit more difficult, especially the older they get. But yeah. And I will say this, there's a really good friend of mine, a guy named Jerry Corners, that actually went to school here. There was three of them that sat behind me, and they all graduated from Murray State in the early 60s. And he had a season ticket, and he lived in Centralia, Illinois, and he drove down every home game for years. And recently he's in his 80s and has recently become sick and not doing well, actually on hospice. But I wanted to give a shout out to that guy because he was a very dedicated fan. He made several tournaments with me. He wasn't able to make last year's Missouri Valley Conference tournament with me, but he made the first two. And he'll be truly missed, and just wanted to let everybody know that.
Well, and I know that's one of the bittersweet parts in this case, but you have made a lot of great friends.
Well, you think about it, Travis, if you're a season ticket holder, you're going to see the people that sit behind you and the people that sit beside you 13, 14, 15 times a year.
Yep.
I mean, that's more than you see your cousin. Some cases more than you see, even closer family than that. Right. So they actually become family, especially over the period of time. And, he'd just be another one of my traveling group that's, going to be gone, and they truly are missed.
Yeah, that shared passion, it does make you like family. It really.
But driving from Centralia, Illinois to Murray, Kentucky to every home game, that was incredible, I thought.
Yeah, that's a little more dedicated than most of us right there.
Pretty dedicated right there. And he was a dedicated fan, and it was kind of cool that all three of them that sat behind me were, one of them's from Carlisle, one of them's from Hickman, and then he was from Centralia, Illinois, where they all ended up, and all of them farmers, but big farmers. And anyway, they were, here in the early 60s. Watching those guys that we were talking about.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I told Jerry, I told Jerry the other night when I did get to talk to him, I called him. I didn't know that he would actually be able to even talk, but he was able to, and it was so great to hear his voice. But, that was one of the things I wanted to make sure that he went and listened to the podcast, and where we talked about the 60s and that time. Because so they're kind of the guys that were college kids in the early 60s that are in their 80s, sitting on the back row, sitting right behind me. And
Yeah,
I think that's pretty neat.
it's pretty special. And Lindy, on that note, obviously we wouldn't ever wish away our TV and our access and ability to see it all now, but some of that would never be built again like it was back in those days, because if you were a distance, then you would just watch it on television. And that people had to come to the arena to experience it, and to get the experience inside is one of the special things that we've kind of lost over the years.
Oh, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, being part of the atmosphere, being part of, being able to jump out of your seat and yell with other people and cheer and smile and high five. And, you don't do that when you're in your living room at home. I mean, you just don't. I mean, I jump up and do it. And I have my friend bring a trash can and set it beside me. Last night, I didn't even think about pulling out the trash can. I didn't have a good feeling. Like I saw that Quinn's boy's eyes, and he had his determination of what he was going to do. I was like, oh no, we're in for it. And we were.
Life on the road, but we'll hope that the fellas get life on the road turned around at Northern Iowa. Lindy has already alluded to it. The ladies are also in Iowa. In fact, they're headed there right now for the Iowa Swing. They've got Northern Iowa on Friday night, Drake on Sunday. As I'll say nothing else, they just want to keep doing well in conference play. That's what they're after. My friend, I know you've got things you need to get to this afternoon, so I will let you get to that. But again, folks, next week, and by the way, everybody in the path of this winter storm, everybody stay warm, stay safe. Let's all pray the power stays on. But we're going to try and have your Suitor 60s, 70s, and 80s teams at some point next week. We hope to talk to Coach Mark Godfrey. We got a lot going on as we head toward the backstretch here of Missouri Valley play.
Keep an eye on X, because sometimes when snowstorms come, Lindy gets into that vault. Pulls out some of those old games. So just keep an eye. I might throw a few.
There you go. The Racer Insider / historian will keep you occupied during that stretch. All right, my friend, we'll get out of here. The signature sign off, as always, is yours.
Go Racers.